Do you have a criteria for what constitutes a hot lead? Imagine knowing exactly who to call. Imagine if you could increase your productivity by talking to more qualified leads. And now imagine that you had a system for scoring, monitoring all your subscribers, your leads, your prospects in a way that you could confidently create a process for predictably generating closings from your database. Today, that's what we're going to discuss: lead scoring. We're going to talk about the whys, the whats, the wins, and the hows to get your business more predictable. Can't wait. Let's get started. Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, where we help business-minded real estate agents stop chasing leads and help them start attracting business. We don't claim to make winners here. We do claim that we help winners win bigger and faster. Building your business is building your database, one that works harder for you than you do for it. So if you want to get off the transaction treadmill, keep on listening. If you want the shortcut to dominating your market, then go to www.marketmakerssystems.com/demo.
Love it. Love it. Jake, this has got to be a particular topic of affinity for you.
Ah, man, I am stoked. And I had actually just listening to Mr. Reese there explaining it just gives me goosebumps. Because it's the difference between being guessing at who to convert and where to put your effort, and actually having a system. And I'm just excited because of the advances that there's been with technology to make this better and better and better. Because I have spent countless hours looking at past sales, seeing exactly what they did. And it was so random all the time of what emails they were opening, what videos they were watching, what blog posts they were reading, that it was hard to be able to do it. And even harder to build like a system to weight what each one was worth. So yeah, it's just extremely exciting what we can do with technology now that can make that so much easier and just get you laser focused on the right people.
Well, I also think equally as important is being able to predict your pipeline for the month. I mean, one of the most, not necessarily frustrating, but things that gives me anxiety is just the unknown. You know, when you have overhead, especially in a sales business like real estate where it's commission based, you know, and you got people counting on you, you got bills coming in, you got overhead out there. How do you know for sure you're going to hit your goal? You know, and yeah, you can look at the past and say, well, we've traditionally, you know, done this and that's equaled that. But to have that confidence, I really feel like is important, and why today's topic is you know, it's something that is always evolving. And I know, Jake, when you know, we're talking, we're like, hey, where are we at? What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Are we on pace or off pace? You have the answers. And it's just very impressive to me. I mean, I was never that sophisticated back in the day. And what I would do is I would count things, and I would count leading indicators. And, you know, it just wasn't super sophisticated, is my point, for me, as it is today.
Can I share something with you guys? So yesterday, Instagram launched a new platform. I don't know if y'all saw it. Did y'all see it?
I did. Yeah, it's a YouTube competitor.
Yeah, and so you know, Netflix stock was up, you know, like 100 points. It feels like in the last, you know, 5 weeks, and I think it was up 20 points this week and dropped 10 points this morning when they talked about Facebook getting into the subscription business, and the reason I even bring that up is that they said that, you know, on Instagram you can only share like a 1-minute video on your feed unless you have over 10,000 followers. And so this is a new platform that's going to allow people to put videos online that are more than a minute. And this guy launches his first video because I hit the button to see what it was like. And it was embarrassing on his part because he literally comes out. He was called the I'm not. I'll change it up a little bit so you can't. But it was and his actual name, I think, was the Business Ninja, right? And he's shooting this video, and you could hear his kids screaming in the background.
Sounds like something we do.
I would not do, just for the record. I would not.
I do something. I do.
Yeah. I would not post that video. And the reason I bring it up is that on the video, he was talking about all this stuff that was way above anybody's head on Instagram. And I like right when we came out of the gate on this podcast, and I feel like, typically when we get on this podcast, we hit the catch up and we start talking. And Odo, I know you were at the lake this weekend and had a great time. And Jake, I know I got to come by and spend some time at your son's birthday, which was amazing. And I've been eating edible Legos, just so you know, for the last 3 days, because that was the party gift. And the reason I bring that up is because what I don't want to do is sound like that dude that was in that video where we just jump into this podcast and talk about what is honestly. See, here's the thing, guys. This is easy but complicated, and I know that's an oxymoron. But the reason why, I would like to assume that nobody knows what lead scoring is because, Odo, I think from my understanding, we might be the only platform that is specific for real estate that has lead scoring. In fact, other platforms like Infusionsoft, I'm talking about lead scoring like we would use it in a sophistication. I mean, yeah, Tiger Leads had five stars, right? But they never told you what it was or how to use them. And so everybody used them differently. Okay.
Right.
And Tiger and Top Producer, me and Jay used to put 1A, 2A's, 3A's. And if it was real hot, I put a $sign with 3A's, and then I'd sort my list top to bottom based upon if it had a non-character it would come up before an A if it had a $sign, right? Which is in effect a prospecting thing. But I think in order to bring tremendous value to today's call, and I'm just trying to, I'm just thinking about the person listening, is like people really there was a day before you knew lead scoring, Jake. And I think what we got to do is we got to go back to those days what is the real problem right now for agents that don't have a criteria, a method? How are they? What do you do right now if you don't have lead scoring? I don't even know because we've been doing it so long. What are people doing? What is the current way that people score their leads?
So I was gonna jump on this because I was gonna ask how you guys did it back in the day, because I remember not doing anything and always just wishing that there was a way that I could figure out who I should be talking to when you only have a couple leads. It's not that big of a deal, right? You can focus on them. But when you've been generating leads for a couple years at this point, right? And you're looking at your database and you're like, meh, should I send them something? Should I send a newsletter? Should I send an email? Should I do something? Right. And you do something, but then it's like you're just shooting in the dark and you're taking the shotgun approach where you're like, or the spaghetti approach where you're just throwing as much against the wall and seeing what's sticking and not really having a real strategy to how to do it. Like for me personally, it was just like I didn't even know it was possible. Right. Like I remember meeting you and Jay 5 years ago, and there was so much on the marketing side or just managing of lead side that I was like, man, I wish I could do this. And it was like, oh yeah, that's possible. Right. And I was like, I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. If you were writing a book, what would be the name of this chapter on lead scoring?
How to maximize every outbound effort to the people most likely to buy or sell.
How about you, Odo?
Ready, aim, fire. and then I'd explain the opposite.
Okay, well, that's a good acronym, because when I first learned about lead scoring, it was more of a marketing function. And and unfortunately I didn't have the luxury of knowing what I didn't know when I sold real estate. But when I got into the business of hosting and actually having to fund $1 million, there was a time where we'd be on the hook for $500,000 to do a live event, right? And we were training real estate agents across the country. We called it our Exponential Growth Summit. And I got on the phone with a guy named Dan Kennedy. And Dan Kennedy, for the people who are listening who don't know him, you should know him. You should read every book he's ever written, which there's a lot. It's called the No BS series, and he's one of the best direct response marketers. And between him and Jay Abraham, I think that between those two, they've had the biggest impact on every real estate trainer, coach, guru in real estate, not and also outside of real estate. And they shared an acronym called RFM. Are y'all from either of y'all familiar with that?
No, not off the top of my head.
Nope.
Okay, so RFM is recency, frequency, and monetary. And that was my first introduction to scoring a database. And the problem was in real estate that I saw was that there was really no ability. Recency meant like the most recent people. So the problem with our clients in real estate is they don't look at themselves as marketers all the time, and they only look for leads instead of going back to their database and looking at their database of subscribers. So that's the first mental shift that I think you have to adopt, and we talked about that in one of the previous episodes. But when you adopt that shift, then lead scoring to me is really and I'm making this up. I'm not reading it, so it could be something else. But it really is a database marketing strategy, right? And so and the reason I want to say that is because lead scoring is not exclusive to just outbound, right? So but at its fundamental purpose is that in any campaign, you have people that are most highly that like any campaign that you ever build has a goal, and there are people that are in the process of moving them towards that goal, and there are people that have the highest probability of taking action that is based upon whatever the goal is you have for the campaign. For me, it was getting people to buy $1,000 ticket. And we were asking to buy $1,000 ticket, a $500 plane ticket, a $200 a night room ticket at the Marriott, and spend 3 days away or 4 days away from their loved ones, which is a pretty big ask for somebody. And so we would have to work a database, and so we would do recency, frequency, and monetization. Monetization was in our business, we would look at that really if we were segmenting is people that have spent the most money with us are people we've made the most commission off of. So, if I had a database of people and I had one guy that, had did a transaction with me who asked what his home was worth versus a guy who not did a transaction with me and asked what his home was worth, and I could only make one phone call, who am I calling? I mean, the guy who did a transaction with me because from a monetization standpoint, he has spent more with me. Now, if you're doing e-commerce or any other internet marketing, it could be the guy, who spent, unless I own a gas station, it could be the guy who's filled up with the gas the most time. I mean, that's a bad example, but I'm just trying to elicit a point here because I think using these type of examples helps people grasp what's possible because it is a complicated thing to understand. But the people who spent the most with you should be scored in your database. Would you? I mean, fundamentally, I know we agree with that because that's what we do, and that's going to be like your past clients. And that's the fundamental problem, guys, is that people do not segment their database by monetary, and so therefore they do not invest time and money, whether that's outbound calling the people that have actually spent money, said differently, past clients. And I know that to be true. They all know we should do it. So understanding lead scoring is not just a lead of a stranger. It's really the person. A person can be a lead. I could have somebody coaching with me when I had a coaching company and spending and then I can also have and they could be a lead for somebody to come to my live event, which is our we used to do these $10,000 boot camps where people would literally pay $10,000, $12,000 to come spend 4 days with us. and I had leads, and guess what? I probably, if I had somebody that had been in my mastermind and spent $30,000 a year and flew around the country, and I scored my database of who was going to be the most likely to come and invest in this $10,000, $12,000 boot camp, who do you think I would prospect first, right? And
Yeah.
so frequency would be consumption. And this is what I think that we've done a great job at Market Maker, is that if you don't get right now in the buyer side of the business, we get to see people who go and look at properties, save properties. And so, like, if somebody is in your database and they've logged into your system 1,600 times, now, in all fairness, I do know that what the number is. You should know the number in your business, and if you have a RETS feed where buyers are able to consume, what the number one thing buyers like to consume is properties. They buy for selection, and then affordability. So selection being homes. If I know that a guy can come and look at my, first of all, if I don't know that, I would get into the business of being able to know that, because if you don't have transparency into where your buyers are searching and looking and how many times they're logging in, that is one unfair competitive advantage that you should get working for you in your business right now, because it changed my life when it came to working with buyers. And there's tons of solutions out there in order to do that. But RETS feeds have changed the game in around 2008, 2007, where companies came online and would actually give selection and to real estate agents, and then we could sift our database, our prospects, and score them based upon how many times they logged in. And I can tell you, if a guy logged in 16 times for a guy versus a guy who logged in no times, the guy who logged in 16 times was worth more. But a guy who logged in 3 times in the last 3 days, which comes to the fact of recency, was worth more to me than I would call him first, because a guy could log in 16 times 6 months ago, and that's not indicative of him wanting to do something. So, I know I wasn't trying to grab the mic. I just wanted to share that, because that lays out kind of where I don't think anybody could ever grasp the brilliance of Market Maker, and what we're building and what we've built and what we're releasing this week for our current customers, until they really understand, because it was within the framework of those principles that I think Market Maker really found a hole in the market, which was, instead of focusing on buyers and sellers, we focus on homeowners. And that means anybody who is owning a home or wants to own a home. See, the average person owns a home over 7 years, and their ability, if they're in your database, and the interaction, if you will, recency, or interaction frequency is a very powerful tool to leverage if you're communicating to your database content in which they would want to interact with, which is click on, read, watch, or and that's why what people don't know is some of the best agents that I see out there that have great businesses are creating content, even if that content is 1 or 2 minute videos that are transcribed into blog posts that they're delivering to that database, with the only intention to know, okay, I wrote a headline. Here, I'll give you an example. You know, new secret for homeowners, or new loophole, new Frisco loophole for homeowners looking to refinance their house in 2017. That would be one thing. Now, somebody who clicks on that and if that was a blog post, is different than someone who clicks on a blog post that says every homeowner, the number one mismanaged variable Frisco homeowners are not managing when trying to buy a new home in Frisco that's being overlooked on the on the home that they have to sell, or whatever. I'm paraphrasing this. I would definitely say it better than that. But if you wrote or if you spoke about, hey guys, listen, one of the things I think people don't understand, and this is that a sale of a home is not an emotional transaction. In fact, a sale of a home if you can put on your investor hat, your home's worth, whether you got your home in a probate or you got a 3% interest rate on your home, your equity in your home has nothing to do with the sale of the property. In fact, the equity of your home is determined by what you bought it for, the interest rate that you were able to pay down on the home, and the condition, you know what I mean? And so if you're looking to buy a new home in Frisco, make sure that you understand that the first showing that you have is online, and supply and demand is going to say, make sure that you do great photos, make sure you do this and do that. But more importantly, the home equity swing, which is, remember, you're going to make your most money on your home, which is making sure you buy the next one right, making sure you get the best interest rate. Click here to find out, how to buy down your interest rate, to make sure that you maximize, the what we call as the home catch 22, which is, I mean, you could say anything. You could say, you could start that thing out with the hook that says, do you know most people's wealth is created through owning real estate? If you're buying your next home, so I'm just spitballing here, but the point is that somebody who reads that or clicks that blog or clicks on that blog and then clicks a link to one of your other ones, and those blogs, just so you know, literally can be spoken. And here's the misconception that I think we got to make sure that we hit here is, to nail and use lead scoring, you have to have a system. In my opinion, it's not outbound. Outbound is the act of calling the person because they've done something that makes us know that they have a higher probability of being a client out of all the other 7,000 people in our database. But depositing that into your database, that content, and then seeing the interaction with it and being consistent is a very, very predictable way to grow business, because it does a couple things. One, it produces authority, because anytime that you're educating your market, you're being positioned as an advisor of somebody. And the fact that we know that somebody's going to they will do business with you the minute they feel like you understand their problem more than they do or anybody else. So educating your market and making deposits of value is a great way to get people to start, attracting business instead of chasing it. So I'm sorry, guys.
I think you should say that again.
I don't know if I could. I just think I didn't mean to take the mic. I didn't mean to do that.
They'll do business with you the moment they believe that you understand their problem more than they understand it or than somebody else does. Because I think that's a fundamental principle as far as content is concerned. And as content pertains to lead scoring, the thing that I did, just to take it back a notch, is I would look at the source of the lead at the end of the transaction. And so there's all these variables in between. And like you said, Jake, if you're just throwing the spaghetti up at the wall and hoping, some of it sticks, that's pretty much what most of my marketing consisted of. And it was pretty good, but there's a better way is what we're trying to communicate. And with lead scoring and understanding the consumption metrics of that content and how it leads them down that path, and being able to assign a score or dynamically assign a score based on the interaction of the things that you are doing, so that you're no longer guessing, is the key.
Yep. And I've spent so many, I don't even want to count how many hours I've spent researching the best ways to do it, because I knew that there were massive inefficiencies with the sales teams that I've ran, just because we weren't doing it the best way that I knew. Like, naturally you do it, right? Like, if somebody fills something out and then calls into the office and you missed a call and you had a missed call from that person, and you got 50 other people that you did it, like, who's the one that you're going to focus on and spend a little bit more time on? Internally, we've had people that will attend a webinar, right? When you don't know how long they were there, whether they asked any questions or not, it makes it difficult to be like, yeah, you should definitely focus on this group of people versus this group of people because they got on and jumped off after 5 minutes. But you naturally do it with information that you have about each person in your database. But the key is, when I was looking at it, the stat that blew me away was that companies that have lead scoring in place have a 60% increase in ROI with what they're doing on the marketing side. Like 60% increase. That is insane just by having a system in place. But if you think about it, it makes sense on why you can do that, because your conversion will be that much higher, because any effort you have on the marketing side or the sales side that you're spending towards that group of subscribers, any money that you're spending, any retargeting that you're doing, and focusing on how much greater would it be if you could focus on the top 20% of people that are going to result in the 80% of your business that are coming from that group of leads. So it's such a big thing. And if you can close your eyes and imagine a situation where you're putting out content, you're just starting to get into it, you realize you need to do it, and it's 2018, and you're like, I just got to do it. And you start doing it, and you're putting out videos, sending out emails on a regular basis to your group of subscribers, and you're closing people, and you have something that's just learning every single time you did something, that this person ended up becoming one of your clients, and they read this email, and they read these 3 blog posts, and they watched all of these videos. So it's just learning and learning and learning. And I don't know what it would cost to hire a data scientist to be able to analyze all that data and do it for you. But if you had that ability, and you could just have like okay, so these are the top 100 people that you have in your database, based off of the lead scoring, off of what they've been doing recently, frequently, right? And if they've spent money with you in the past, hitting on that RFM, if you have something that's able to do that for you, it saves you an enormous amount of time, not only analyzing the data yourself, but also with what you're focusing on, what time you're spending, and what the return on your time is, because you've already spent the money with those people to get them as subscribers. But what are you doing to maximize that return on your time that you're spending on the marketing side or the sales side, just to max that out? And the numbers don't lie. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And companies getting a 60% lift in their ROI just by having one thing is a big deal.
Well, and I think this is a fundamental problem that we've always tried to solve in the business. We try to solve it through ISAs. We try to solve it through a number of different things, but just the human element of it, you can't always be right all the time. And I think technology is starting to catch up in a way that makes that more possible, which is just exciting, And the other thing that I think it does is it gives you the momentum to continue doing what you're doing. I think I see a lot of agents that'll start a blog post or start spitting out some videos, and I watch them because I'm interested just in what agents do.
I don't see those. Can you forward them to me? Because I don't know any. I'm joking.
I was gonna say I will, but I'm gonna have to dig back because they stop. That's my point. They stop, and why do they stop? It's because they can't tangibly see the result of their effort, and they're like, "Man, I don't know if this is working or not. I know people are watching it, but what's it actually doing for me?" And I'm busy. So I think it reinforces those things that you should be doing, that you should be doing, and it puts a spotlight on the things that are working. As far as is the lead scoring as we've built it, which is really cool.
Yeah. So here's a couple things. Like if we were going to tell somebody, if you wanted to implement lead scoring, I can give you some context. Like, for me, there's behavior, right? Like you could look at all of the behaviors that you're able to, and you need to have a system that does that. I mean, first of all, lead scoring starts with the technology you're using. So let's just face it, you're not going to do this. If you haven't,
sticky notes.
Yeah,
you're going to do it with sticky notes.
And if you're not ready for lead scoring, then at least get a CRM that's going to let you build into that. And you could get a free CRM. Like if you're just not ready for it, you could go download our free CRM, which is the Market Maker. I don't know where they would go to get that, but I think that would be something that if someone wanted to get a free CRM, where could they get a free CRM access to that?
So if you went to create.marketmakercrm.com, there's just be a form there to sign up, and you'll have a free CRM for life.
Yeah, so you could go do that, and at least when you're ready, you'll know that the system at its core is going to allow you to do some of the basic things. And let me tell you what those are. Like, one of the things you want to be able to see is mainly content consumed, so content downloaded. One of the things that you might not be, and just follow me here. There's content like KCM. You can get content from other people that you post on your blog and then post on your page or email to your clients. And then see who's interacting with that, and find there's a way that you can do that. It's not hard. I don't know what you all post on social media. I don't know if if you're avoiding content like the plague, but I can tell you I would embrace it. I do believe it's a unfair competitive advantage, and if done right, gives you an ability to take and own keywords on Google. But you know how many page views, so our frequencies of visits, are more importantly, just some of the what I call situational opt-ins. So one of the best ways to score a lead is just ask them a question when they give you their name and number. Are you interested in refining? Like, give them 4 or 5 options. And also, being able to see a, being able to see a timeline around, the content that's people are interacting with your stuff, right? And then I think it's just taking a logical look at here's all the things and behaviors. And one last thing, knowing what somebody did, like that buying cycle or selling cycle, allows you to align content. And so let me explain. Like, imagine your last transaction with a stranger, because that's what makes your business a little bit more scalable. Or you couldn't go off your referrals. I just think that it's going to be a different type of content. But imagine the last person who bought a home from you or sold a home from you. Like, what did they do, and what were they thinking about a year, 6 months, 90 days, right? Like, a guy who's 30 days out is thinking different than a person 6 months out. And so understanding, the buying cycle, and then the type of actions and behaviors people make during each stage of those cycles, and then adding a weight to those, and then fine tuning it over time. Like, I just knew. Let me see if I can give you an example outside of real estate. I always use weddings, but like, somebody who's engaged is in a different stage of buying a honeymoon than somebody who is looking to get engaged, right? Like, so Googling engagement rings is most of the time, not all the time, is a different stage in the process for a lot of times than if you're going to sell them, let's say, a stroller, right? Like I'd want to know somebody who's at the stage of married to sell them a house than engaged. You know what I'm saying? Or something like that. Typically, not all the time, but a lot of the times people get married and then go buy the house versus buy the house and then get married. Doesn't mean it's all the time. I know that's subject to the chain. Sometimes people have kids before they're married. I'm just saying, like, but that's a cycle that you could know that, okay, hey, listen, if somebody's interacting with, the 10 best ways to propose to your girlfriend is completely different than, how to pick out your, first home, or something like that. So if you can understand those things,
I got a better one.
Give me one. I know I made you think when I was when I was talking.
You are. Because like you come up with dynamite headlines, but you're shooting blanks. So I wanted to tie it together. So it'd be like the top 10 or the top 3 areas of stress for newlyweds when purchasing a home and how to avoid them, right? That would be a little bit better angle or headline for the latter. But I hear what you're saying, man. And where were you going with that specifically as it pertains to the scoring?
Well, the scoring is your scoring should be constituted across the journey. So if you know your buyer journey and you know the type of content that you're going to produce around the journey, and then you should weight the content. So somebody who downloads a blog about how to get your home sold in the next 30 days, is going to be worth completely different than somebody who downloads a blog or interacts with or comments on a blog or interacts with a piece of content on how to lower their tax assessed value.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I think the other thing too, just from a nurturing standpoint, because I was thinking about this the other day. You know, when you're because I just had a baby, right? So when you're going to have a baby, you don't wait for the baby to get there to prepare, right?
Your wife had the baby.
We had the baby. We were pregnant. These are the things you say today. I don't say she had a baby. She'll smack me. But my point is this: like, you don't wait, right, until the baby comes to go get all the stuff ready. And it's the same with a person, which we would call a lead or subscriber, right? You're going to help prepare them along that path and along that journey, and you're going to have all those things ready for them, you know, as far as things to consume content wise. And you're 100% right. Certain things are going to be weighted more based on where they're at in that journey and that process.
You know, the thing that I can tell people is here's the thing. I believe in being a little bit less passive and a little bit more assertive. And here's what I would tell you. If you have a business and you're in real estate, you know, what we're saying is you have to have lead scoring. But before you have lead scoring, you have to think of your database, because that's what you're scoring is your database. Not only new leads, everybody. It's not just leads. We call everybody in our database a lead because everybody in our database does have the potential to buy or sell a home. And you need to be able to score them and sift and sort them. And recency would be, you know, someone who's new to your list. You want to call them first or interact with them first because, you know, they're decaying. You know, they're decaying. You need to be able to sift and sort those people. What we don't want to do is have ADD with our database where we only focus on the new people into it and don't do anything with the people that are already there. In fact, I would say the opposite. The shift in the mind is that you already have enough leads. If half of your past clients sent you a referral this year, you'd probably have a great year. And so what do you need to do in communicating to that database in a way that keeps you top of mind, positions you as authority, and has people raise their hand because you have calls to action in your communication? The methodology that I was taught this was called the triangle of trust, which just means that, you know, I could send you an email that says, hey, I'm number one, and when you want to sell my house, work with me. But people are going to feel chased and they're going to run. And if you want to live your life by transaction, go right ahead. Every month you're going to be trying to find your next deal. Or you can live your life by attraction. And living your life by attraction is where you just continue to produce value into the people that already know, like, and trust you, and you're constantly trying to grow that universe in a way where over time, some people aren't going to pay you, no pun intended, with their attention, but some people are. And over time, if you produce valuable content that helps people overcome the obstacles and the challenges, makes them aware of problems they know they have, and makes them aware of problems they didn't know they have. So you're making them, you know, more consciously incompetent, and offering just every once in a while to offer help or assistance, or having calls to action around the content that you're providing that is really, truly valuable. I think you'll every month find people reaching out to you to do business. And that is the market maker methodology. It's truly at its fundamental basis. How do you attract instead of chase? And I think that through attraction, if you can adopt that, and at least subscribe to, okay, well, I at least agree that, you know, if that was possible, I'd much rather build a business this way, or said differently, one that works harder for me than I do for it. Then lead scoring becomes a opportunity for you, because right now there's people in your database that are reading blogs, whether you provided them or not. They're going on YouTube. They're looking for solutions to their problems. We're just saying, why don't you become the solution? And just remember, and I'm going to end with saying this, listen, your database's value is elastic to your communication with it. And it's the law of thermodynamics that states that nothing is constant. In fact, everything is staying the same. And your database is either appreciating or depreciating. And, you know, there is always a better way. And the way, if you're not getting everything you want out of your business, it's just, you simply haven't learned something yet. And we would just highly encourage you to adopt the methodology of inbound along with what you're already doing outbound. But if you could make available, 15 minutes or an hour a week to actually communicating to your database and coming up with a process for that, we think that you can build a true business that truly works harder for you than you do for it. But that's all I got, guys. That's all I got for today. If y'all have any closing remarks there.
Yeah, I was just gonna hammer a couple points home here. First, going back to what you had said at the beginning, which is like the fundamental shift that has to happen first is looking at your database as a group of subscribers. And you had just said something about how it's each day, each hour, each minute that goes by, a lead that comes in, a new subscriber that comes in is decaying, right? And the only opportunity that they have of becoming and coming back to life and going back to some recency is if you're putting out consistent content. And so if you're doing it, you want to make sure that you have the systems in place. So that's the second point is just being able to have systems in place and becoming system dependent and not people dependent, because you'll let yourself down all the time. People will let you down. Even the best employees that you could ever have on your team, they're not robots, so they're going to have things that fall through the cracks. So the more systems that you have in place, the better you are. And lead scoring is one of those systems. And I just did an interview with one of our clients that I saw. They post all the time. They're everywhere in their market. And they're going to have like 79 closings. They've had 79 closings in June. They had 11 on last Friday, which is insane. And they just have continued to grow. And I asked them what was the biggest shift, because 5 years ago they were doing 40 deals. Shortly before that, they were getting close to the I don't have any money to do anything mark. And I asked him what the biggest shift was, and he said system and processes. Like that was the biggest shift that they had. Was becoming system dependent and having processes installed into their business. So then they were just able to continue to build off that, and the lead scoring is a huge part of that.
Love it.
Awesome.
That's my closing remark.
I love it, man. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks everybody for jumping on and listening to today's podcast. If you haven't had the opportunity, make sure you subscribe. We'd love for you to leave a comment. And like we said, the best type of business to build is one that works harder for you than you do for it. And the truth is, you always are either working in your business
or on your business.